I refuse to accept this woman as a juror.
What do you want, a jury of morons? This woman is intelligent and unprejudiced.
She is prejudiced.
She isn't.
She is. Gentlemen, order.
Your Honor, I apologize.
Your Honor, I apologize to the court. Mr. Dale and Mr. Van Styk. The court is tired of this wrangling. You gentlemen have been 3 days selecting 10 jurors. The court insists that you select the remaining 2 jurors and proceed with the case. Very well, Your Honor, then. As counsel for the defense, I accept this woman as a juror. And you, Mr. Van Styk?
I accepted her long ago, but my worthy young opponent, the attorney for the defense, objected to her.
Thank goodness you made them stop arguing over me.
Ms. Pratt, you will rise and raise your right hand.
You do solemnly swear that you will well and truly try the issues jointly between the people of the state of New Jersey and Yvette Gordon, the defendant at the bar, and a true verdict rendered in accordance with the law and the evidence. So help you God?
I do.
Next.
Yes, Your Honor. Mrs. Livingston Baldwin Crane.
Miss Livingston Baldwin Crane?
Oh, yes, I'm coming this moment. Oh, Judge Fish, 1,000 pardons for my being late, but it didn't worry me because I remembered that the Burtons had told you at the club last Sunday that they'd be staying today, and I was sure you'd understand I had to pop in. Oh, do tell me whether Janet will be home in time to see Fred and Bertha. You know they will be so disappointed.
My dear Mrs. Crane,
Yes.
you have not kept the court waiting. Now, if you will please take the witness stand.
Witness stand, why, Judge Fish, I thought I was invited to serve on the jury.
Quite so, Mrs. Crane, but you must be examined.
Yeah. Why, Judge Fish, it is true I've never served on a jury before, but do you doubt my mental qualifications?
The court hasn't the slightest doubt of your mental qualifications, Mrs. Crane, but in order for you to serve as a juror, you must be accepted by counsel by those on both sides. And before counsel can accept you, counsel must examine you. Now, if you will please take the witness stand.
With pleasure. Oh, Suzanne, bring my bag. I left it in the car.
We go down.
That was thoughtless of me, but don't let it delay my examination.
Now, Mrs. Crane, as counsel of the defense, I'm obliged to ask you a few questions, but in your case, they're scarcely more than mere formality.
Why, thank you, Mr.
There.
Mr. Day.
Now, tell me something, Mrs. Crane. Have you, by chance, read anything pertaining to this case in the newspapers?
Well, to be perfectly frank with you, Mr. Dale, I've been so frightfully busy lately I haven't had a chance to even glance at a paper in weeks. Was I supposed to read up on it?
You are not, Mrs. Crane.
Well, then I shall be the perfect juror. I don't know the first thing about it, except that it's a murder case, and I would not have known that had Suzanne not told me.
And Suzanne is your maid?
Yes, and she has a perfect passion for murder cases.
Have you discussed this case with Suzanne? That is, have you formed any impressions concerning the case?
No, I have not discussed it, and I have formed no impression.
Your Honor, the defense accepts Mrs. Crane as a juror.
Thank you, Mr. Dale.
Mrs. Crane, as attorney for the prosecution, I shall ask you just 4 questions. First, do you know the defendant?
Oh, so you are the defendant. How do you do?
Mrs. Crane,
Yes.
you are not committed to the murder of the defendant.
Oh, my apologies.
Do you know her?
No, Mr.
Van Styk.
Van Styk? Why, a descendant of dear old General Van Styk.
Yes, did you know him?
Well, hardly. The General Van Styk I speak of fought in the American Revolution. And he and my great-great-great-grandfather fought side by side at the Battle of Princeton and the Battle of Monmouth. Oh, and I know this will fascinate you. At the Battle of Monmouth, both he and my great-great-great-grandfather helped dear old Molly Pitcher shoot the gun. Of course, then General Van Styk was only a corporal, but he was there helping Molly just the same. My, those were stirring days for our ancestors, weren't they, Mr. Van Styk?
They were indeed, Mrs. Crane.
Mr. Van Styk, if you wish to examine Mrs. Crane further, please proceed.
Very well, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Then you do not know the defendant.
No, Mr. Van Styk.
Did you know the defendant's late husband, Mr. Romney S. Gordon?
No, Mr. Van Styk.
Mrs. Crane, have you any prejudice against capital punishment?
Do you mean am I opposed to capital punishment?
Yes. Are you?
Mr. Van Styk, capital punishment is the law, and as long as it is so, it should be enforced. As to my personal convictions, my duty to the state comes first, of course.
Now tell me, Mrs. Crane, if you were on the jury, and after you've heard all the facts in this case, you think that that woman is guilty of murder in the first degree, would you have any objections to her being sentenced to death?
Mr. Van Styne, if after I've heard all of the evidence, I am convinced that Mrs. Gordon is guilty, yes, I should do my duty and convict her regardless of the sentence to be imposed.
Your Honor, the prosecution accepts Mrs. Crane as a juror.
Mrs. Crane, you will stand and raise your right hand. You do solemnly swear that you will and well truly try the issue joined between the people of the state of New Jersey and the defendant at the bar, and a true verdict rendered in accordance with the law and the evidence, so help you God.
Yes, Judge, I do, Judge.
Mrs. Crane, it is the custom to address the court as your honor.
Oh, I really am very stupid. What am I supposed to do?
Take your seat in the jury.
And then what am I supposed to do?
Listen to the testimony of the witnesses.
Your Honor, are we just permitted to ask questions during the trial?
You may question the witnesses, but only when they're on the witness stand and with the consent of the court.
Thank you.
Madam, it was nothing to cut. So I still driving down the court.
Thank you.
Mrs. Crane,
Yes?
can you please ask the debate to remain outside the railing?
Oh, with pleasure. Suzanne, this gentleman will show you where to sit. I'm on the jury now.
Madam, Jules wishes to know if you should wait or go home until you telephone.
Your Honor, do tell me how long the trial will last.
It may last several days if we ever get started.
Tell Jules to wait. I have a dinner engagement. But if I see I'll be late, I'll send him.
Oui, madame.
Your Honor, do tell me when the trial is to begin.
As soon as you are seated.
Oh. How do you do? If you would be so kind as to move over just a trifle. The trial cannot commence until I'm seated, so I really must sit. Dead.
Hey, what the hell? Stop shoving.
Silence! The court cannot allow unbecoming language.
All right, Your Honor, but make this dang stop shoving.
I wasn't shoving. I had to get over so she could sit down.
Silence! The court cannot allow the jurors to converse with one another. Mr. Dillon, Mr. Van Styne,
Yes, Your Honor.
you gentlemen have taken so much time selecting a jury that the court will forego the customary recess and try this case immediately.
Very well, Your Honor. If Your Honor pleases.
Madame, I give Jules your message. In case of...
Thank you. Sit down. The trial is
Oui,
starting.
madame.
Oh, go on, please. Proceed.
Your Honor, if Your Honor pleases, and you, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, as attorney for the state, it is my duty to try the defendant, Yvette Gordon, on the charge against her, murder in the first degree, the murder of her husband. This is what I shall prove to you during the course of this trial. First, I'll prove that Mrs. Gordon murdered her husband, but she will claim he shot himself by accident while struggling for the possession of a gun, a revolver. But I will prove she murdered him in cold blood. Second, I will prove she murdered him for what were to her good and sufficient reasons. He was rich, and she wanted his money. That's why she married him, for his money. He was a retired financier, a retired Wall Street broker. His wife, before he married her, was an actress, a chorus girl in a Broadway musical play. Her name, before Mr. Gordon married her, was Yvette. And as you have already doubtlessly surmised from her name, she is French. I mean, she was still a French citizen. Indeed, she had not even expressed so much as a desire to become an American citizen, had not even made application for her first paper.
Your Honor, I object. The prosecution is deliberately trying to prejudice the jury by waving the American flag in their faces. The defendant's being tried for murder, not for being a foreigner when she married her husband.
Objection sustained.
Thank you.
The juror will disregard the prosecution's reference to the defendant's citizenship prior to her marriage. Proceed.
Before Mrs. Gordon married, she was a chorus girl, barely able to support herself by singing and dancing in a Broadway musical show. After their marriage, Mr. Gordon brought her to live with him in this palatial country home near this charming town of Roseville. He bought her every luxury money could buy. Cars, servants, beautiful clothes, everything money could procure, he lavished upon his wife, the ex-chorus girl. But these gifts did not satisfy Mrs. Gordon. No, she wanted all of her husband's money. So she murdered him.
I did nothing!
Silence!
Another reason Mrs. Gordon murdered her husband was she craved the amorous embraces of other men. And to satisfy this craving, she murdered her husband, the man to whom, of her own free will, she had been joined to in holy wedlock. Those, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, those are the facts that I shall prove. And when I have proven those facts, when I have shown that the defendant did murder her loving husband, I shall expect you as 12 ladies and gentlemen of intelligence, impartiality, unswerved and unswayed by prejudice, emotion, or sympathy. I shall expect you to find the defendant guilty on the charge against her. And I shall expect you to return from that jury room with the verdict of guilty, knowing that it means the penalty of death, but knowing also that in spite of that terrible penalty, you as 12 jurors, good and true, will have done your duty unflinchingly and in the cause of justice.
Your Honor, may I ask a question?
If you'll please rise when addressing the court, Mrs. Crane.
My knowledge of the amenities of the courtroom is practically nil. Please do not hesitate to correct me and be a bit patient with my ignorance.
The court is most patient, Mrs. Crane. Now your question.
Oh, this is the question, Your Honor. Mr. Van Styne has just told the jury what he will prove during the case. But really, Your Honor, if Mr. Van Styne can prove everything he says he can, well, why bother with the trial at all? Why not just let him prove it and you can sentence the defendant?
Mrs. Crane, one of the oldest and most sacred rights of the English-speaking world is the right to a trial by jury. Jury of our peers.
Yes, but really, Judge, if Mr. Van Styne can prove everything he says he can, and of course he can, otherwise he would not say so, well then, Mrs. Gordon hasn't a ghost of a chance. She's doomed before the trial begins.
That is the purpose of the trial, Mrs. Crane. To find out if Mr. Van Styne can prove what he says he can prove.
If he can prove it. Really, Your Honor, aren't the lawyers in a case obliged to take an oath to tell the truth? The whole truth and nothing but the truth?
No, not the lawyers. Only the witnesses are sworn to tell the truth. However, the jury must accept nothing until it is proven to be a fact.
Then as I understand it, and please correct me if I'm mistaken, Mr. Van Styne tells the court that Mrs. Gordon murdered her husband, but we of the jury are not to believe a word he says until he actually proves it?
Precisely. Mr. Van Styne's address wasn't supposed to influence the jury, but simply give an outline of his case.
Oh, so that was it. I made the mistake of believing what he said. Thank you for telling me it wasn't true. Or that is, not to be accepted as true until he proves it. I appreciate your patience.
The court appreciates your appreciation, Mrs. Crane.
Please proceed.
Mrs. Crane. Mr. Van Styne, proceed.
The prosecution calls Dr. James to the stand.
Dr. James?
Dr. James, will you kindly take the stand?
Your name?
Dr. Addie Quincy Jones, Jr.
Do you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth so help you God?
Oh, I do.
Dr. James, do you know the defendant, Mrs. Gordon?
Oh, I do.
How long have you known her?
1 month and 1 year to be exact.
Did you know her husband, Mr. Romney Gordon?
I did.
Were you their family physician?
I was.
Were you called to their home on the night of April 1st of this year?
I was.
And who called you?
Mrs. Gordon. She telephoned me.
When you arrived there, what did you find?
Mr. Gordon lying on the floor of her bedroom. Dead.
What caused his death?
A bullet. He had been shot.
Did you see a revolver in Mr. Gordon's hand?
No.
Did you see a revolver lying on the floor near his hand?
No. But I saw a revolver lying on the table.
You saw a revolver lying on the table. How far was the table from Mr. Gordon?
About 10 feet.
Dr. James, as an experienced physician, would you say Mr. Gordon's death was instantaneous?
Oh, yes, he was shot through the temple.
Then, it was humanly impossible for Mr. Gordon to shoot himself through the temple, put the revolver on the table, and walk 10 feet before he fell, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
I didn't say he picked it up and put it on the table. I said I picked it up and put it on the table.
Silence! Your Honor, my client's under terrific nervous strain, however. I'll try to keep her from repeating this interruption.
See that you do, Mr. Dale. Proceed.
And that is all, Your Honor. I have finished.
doctor, he's dead. He shot himself.
Did she tell you how it happened?
She said that her husband was going to shoot her, and she grabbed his hand, and he accidentally shot himself.
What did you say?
Nothing.
Did you question her?
No, I'm a doctor, not a detective.
Then you took it upon yourself to telephone for the police.
That's my prerogative as a physician.
And you telephoned the police because you thought Mr. Gordon had been murdered, didn't you?
Your Honor, I object. I'm cross-examining the witness.
Objection sustained.
When you entered Mr. and Mrs. Gordon's bedroom, was anyone else there besides Mr. and Mrs. Gordon?
Yes, the maid.
What is the maid's name?
Snow.
Miss Snow?
Miss Evelyn Lane Snow, if you want it all.
You seem to know Miss Snow quite well.
Oh, I ought to. I'm her physician.
When you were in the bedroom with Mrs. Gordon and Miss Snow, did Miss Snow say anything to you?
Yes.
What did she say?
She asked me if I was sure he was dead.
What else?
I said I was sure, and she said, thank you.
Is that all Mrs. Snow said? Are you sure he's dead? Thank you.
Yes.
How long were you there, Dr. James?
Until the police arrived.
And then you left?
Yes.
But the entire time that you were there, Mrs. Snow never told you how Mr. Gordon was killed.
No.
You never asked her.
No, I am a doctor, not a detective.
Your Honor, I finished with this witness.
Just one moment, Dr. James. Your Honor, may I ask the doctor a question?
You have the court's permission.
Dr. James, I believe you said you were the Gordon's family physician.
I was.
Then would you be so good as to tell me, Doctor, or that is, tell the jury, in all that time you were with the Gordons, did Mrs. Gordon ever say anything to you that would lead you to believe she had ceased to love her husband?
Well, not that she had ceased to love her husband exactly, but she did say something that indicated domestic life was far from being happy.
And what did she say to you, Doctor?
She said she didn't like to live in New Jersey, but she had to because her husband wouldn't live anywhere else.
Well, then it wasn't her husband, it was New Jersey.
But Mrs. Gordon never told you she didn't love her husband, did she?
No.
And you never saw her do anything or heard her say anything to indicate that she didn't love her, did you?
No.
Well, you never saw her say anything or do anything that indicated she did love her husband, did you?
No.
Thank you.
Am I dismissed, Your Honor?
It was quite sweet of you to permit me to question the doctor.
That is your prerogative as a juror.
The prosecution calls Miss Snow to the stand.
Miss Snow?
Yes, sir?
Your name?
Evelyn Elaine Snow.
Do you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
I do.
Miss Snow, you were in the home of Mrs. Gordon the night her husband met his death, were you not?
Yes, sir, I was.
And how did you happen to be there?
I was employed as a maid.
Miss Snow, will you kindly tell the jury exactly what happened that night?
Mr. Van Stein, must I tell everything, sir?
Yes, Miss Snow, the jury must have all the facts.
Very well. I was downstairs making Mr. Gordon, some hot lemonade. It was awfully late. About 12 o'clock?
Was Mrs. Gordon at home?
No, sir.
Where was she?
In New York.
How did you know that she went to New York?
Because she told me so after she returned.
Did Mr. Gordon say anything to you that showed he did not know she went to New York?
Yes, sir.
And what did he say to you?
Well, when he discovered that she had left, he asked me if I knew where she had gone.
So, in other words, Mrs. Gordon ran away from her husband.
No, sir. She didn't run away from him. She just left without saying goodbye or where she was going.
When was that? When did she leave him?
About a week before she shot him.
I did it! I did it! Shoot it!
Silence! Proceed.
After you made the hot lemonade for Mr. Gordon, then what did you do?
I took it upstairs.
Then what?
I began to take it to Mr. Gordon
Where was Mr. Gordon?
in their bedroom.
Did you take it to him?
No, sir.
Why not?
Because I heard someone talking to him.
Who was it?
Mrs. Gordon.
How do you know it was Mrs. Gordon?
Because I recognized her voice.
And what was she saying?
Mr. Van Dyke, please don't make me answer that question.
Miss Snow, what was Mrs. Gordon saying to her husband?
She was saying that if it was none of his business where she had been or why she had run away from her. I never said that!
What else did she say?
Said that if he didn't like it, he could go to hell. That's a lie!
Mr. Dale, the defendant must control herself.
I never said it and she knows it. Where was I?
Mrs. Gordon had just told her husband to go to hell.
Your Honor, may I ask
No! Yes, but presently not now. Proceed.
Miss Snow, what happened next? Please, go on.
Then she said, and I'll send you to hell. I heard a gunshot. I ran into the bed with Tom and Miss Gordon kneeling beside her husband with a revolver in her hand. And Mr. Gordon was lying there. Dad, no, please, no, she is lying, no, she is lying, will you listen to her, please?
My dear woman, this is a court of justice and all parties must be heard.
Why won't you hear me? I'm gonna get him, I tell you.
Mrs. Gordon, you can tell the jury what you wish when you're on the witness stand, but you must sit down and be quiet.
I can't be quiet when they're telling lies about me. Dad, you do this to me, I will good to you.
Mrs. Gordon, the court is trying to be patient with you, but you must sit down immediately and remain quiet.
Very well, Your Honor, I'll be quiet.
Miss Snow, before Mrs. Gordon married, she was a New York actress, wasn't she?
Your Honor, I object. That is a contemptible act to prejudice the jury.
She was acting, and she's been acting all over the place. Influence the jury.
Order, gentlemen.
Your Honor, that speech was a direct bid by her counsel to win the influence of the jury.
You are insulting me, and I will not stand for it.
Oh, yeah? I think that you will.
Oh, you think so?
Yes, I do.
Order, gentlemen, order! Your Honor, I apologize to the court.
You should.
Mr. Van Styre, your conduct is reprehensible. Proceed with the witness.
Miss Snow, the last thing you told the jury is that you rushed into the bedroom and you saw Mrs. Gordon on her knees with a revolver in her hand and her husband lying on the floor dead. Then what?
She didn't see me until after I spoke. She just knelt there, saying, why did I do it? Why did I do it?
And what did you say?
I said, Mrs. Gordon, what have you done? Why did you shoot him?
And what did she say?
She said, I shot him because I was tired of living with him.
Oh! Then what?
And she begged me not to tell anybody that she had shot him. She begged me to tell that he had shot himself.
Suicide?
No, accidentally. And then I saw him do it.
Then what?
And she offered to pay me to tell that to the police.
Oh! She tried to bribe you to lie to the police?
Yes,
How much did she offer you?
any price
her to pay you then and there?
No, when the estate was settled.
Did she tell you her husband had left everything to her?
Yes. Você do meu instead!
Madame, comment-vous, s'il vous plaît? Yes, have I done something irregular?
Mrs. Crane, you owe the court an apology.
But why, Your Honor? I don't understand how my behavior has been out of the ordinary.
Mrs. Crane, the court is able to cope with the situation.
I am quite sure the court can cope with any situation. If it's perfectly agreeable, may I ask the witness a question?
You have the court's permission.
Thank you. Miss Snow, when Mrs. Gordon offered to pay you any price you asked for telling the police that you saw her husband shoot himself, did you name a price?
Of course I didn't. I wouldn't lie, not even for her, no matter how much she paid me.
Your Honor, I wish to question the witness.
You have the court's permission.
You are a good girl, aren't you?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
And you go to church, don't you?
Your Honor, I object. The question is irrelevant and immaterial.
Objection sustained.
Your Honor, I object to his objection.
The court has ruled the religious activities of the witness have nothing to do with the case. Proceed.
Mr. Dale, the witness is yours.
Miss Snow, you told us all that you saw Mrs. Gordon with a revolver in her hand. In which hand?
The left hand?
Ah, the left hand. Now tell me something, Mrs. Snow. Have you ever seen Mrs. Gordon write a letter?
No, sir.
Have you ever seen Mrs. Gordon play bridge?
No, sir.
Have you ever seen her light a cigarette?
No, sir.
Have you ever seen her wind her watch?
No, sir.
Mrs. Snow, have you ever seen Mrs. Gordon do anything?
Yes, sir. I've seen her dancing with her boyfriend.
Dr. James told us that he saw that revolver lying on the table. Now you saw Mrs. Gordon put the revolver on the table after she showed you how her husband snatched out the drawer, didn't you?
No, sir. She put the gun on the table when she was begging me to lie to the police for her.
You tried to make Mrs. Gordon pay you for not lying to the police, didn't you?
Of course I didn't. Are you calling me a blackmailer?
Why didn't you tell your story of the shooting of Dr. James while he was there? Why did you wait till the police arrived and then spring it? Did it really take you that long to invent it?
I didn't invent it. I was protecting Mrs. Gordon. That's why I didn't tell the doctor how it happened. But when the police came, they made me tell them. I didn't want to. They made me.
Mrs. Snow, how much did you want Mrs. Gordon to pay you for not telling that lie?
Your Honor, I object. He's calling the witness a liar.
She is a liar!
Your Honor, may I ask another question?
You have the court's permission.
Miss Snow, how long had you been with the Gordons?
Almost ever since they were married. And it breaks my heart so to have to tell all these things. Mrs. Gordon was so good to me. And I feel so sorry for her. Oh, you can't look like you snake!
Silence!
Miss Snow, was Mr. Gordon kind to you? Did you like Mr. Gordon?
No, Mr. Gordon was cross with me, but Mrs. Gordon was always kind and friendly.
Then you were not fond of Mr. Gordon.
No, but I was very fond of Mrs. Gordon.
Miss Snow, did Mrs. Gordon engage you through an employment agency?
Your Honor, I object. That question is irrelevant and immaterial.
Objection sustained.
My apologies, Mrs. Crane.
That is all.
Mr. Dale, do you wish to examine the witness further?
No, certainly, but later. I believe she's exercised her imagination enough for one sitting.
Thank you, Miss Snow. Your Honor, the prosecution rests, reserving, of course, the right to call other witnesses in rebuttal.
Your Honor, I make a motion that this case be dismissed on the grounds of insufficient evidence.
Motion denied.
Your Honor, I make a motion that the court take a brief recess. I had no idea the prosecution would address this case so soon. Consequently, most of my most important witnesses aren't here.
Mr. Dale, this case has already been unduly delayed and the court has a full docket. Motion denied. Proceed with the trial.
Very well, Your Honor. Your Honor pleases. And you, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, it was addressed to the jury at the beginning of the trial that the prosecution told you what he would prove. Now I shall not waste your valuable time in telling you what I shall prove. I'll prove it. The prosecution told you with great length and with sophomoric emotion the defendant, Mrs. Gordon, murdered her husband. But she will tell you with her own lips exactly how her husband came to his demise. And every word that Mrs. Gordon utters will be the truth. Were it not the truth, I would not be defending her. I never defend a liar. The prosecution has placed me at a great disadvantage by resting this case so soon. I had not intended to put Mrs. Gordon on the stand until much later in the trial. It was very clever of the prosecution. However, this is not an exhibition of cleverness. This is a court of justice. And the defendant, Mrs. Gordon, is fighting for justice with one and only one weapon. The truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Now, Mrs. Gordon, will you kindly take the stand?
Your name?
Yvette Goudon.
Do you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
Yes, and it is the truth, not a lot of lies.
Mrs. Gordon, please be seated.
Now, Mrs. Gordon, tell the jury exactly how it happened that night. In your own words. Your own words.
My husband was going to shoot me and I was trying to stop him, but he shot himself. And I never touched that gun. It was in his hand all the time. And I didn't ask for her to lie for me. When she came into the bedroom, I was kneeling beside my husband, crying and saying to myself, oh, why did I do it? Why did I do it? Meaning, why did I run away from him, not why did I shoot him? And she said, so you killed him, did you? And I said, no, he shot himself. He rushed to the table and was taking the gun up to the drawer. And I ran to him, trying to get a hold of it, begging him not to shoot me, and the gun went off, and it killed him. And she said, you have a swell chance of making the police and a jury believe that. And I said, of course they will believe it. Then I picked up the gun, intending to show her just how it happened. And she said, put that gun down before it goes off and shoot me. So I put it on the table. And then she said, Mrs. Gordon, how much will you pay me to say I saw your husband shoot himself? And that made me furious, so I said, of course they will believe it. She said, not when I tell them my story of how it happened, they won't. I can get you all of this and I will. But you will have to pay me and pay me big, and if you don't pay me right now, I'll fix it so you never get out of it. And then she said, Mrs. Gordon, how much will you pay me? How much will you give me? And I said, I'll give you just 24 hours to find another position and leave this house. But when the police came, and they told them the story she told you, they believed her. They thought I was lying, and they arrested me. And they put me in jail and I was being tried for murder, and I never did it. I never did it.
Your Honor, if the defendant is too hysterical to go on with the trial, may it please the court to call a recess and place her under the care of a physician until she can't control her emotions.
Your Honor, the defendant is not hysterical. She's been confined in a jail cell for many weeks, and she is now battling against an unjust accusation of murder.
Your Honor, I object. That speech was a direct bid for the sympathy of the jury. Of course she was kept in jail. Where do you suppose they would keep her? And that sucks. And you told her to do that for the jury.
No, I couldn't because I had to.
Certainly you had to for the jury. Your Honor, I object.
Your Honor, may I ask
Very well, Mrs. Crane.
Now, Mrs. Gordon, you said your husband was trying to shoot you. He was. And why was he trying to shoot you? Because he thought I had been untrue to him and I had it and I told him so. But he wouldn't believe me. He thought I ran away from him for another man. But I didn't. I ran away from him because I needed a vacation. They live with him no longer without him. Just what do you mean, without a vacation? Well, we have been married
Your Honor, I object.
Et vous me comporez de nous que vous la patou?
Your Honor, I object. I object.
Mrs. Crane, you have a court apology.
Your Honor, have I done something else irregular?
Mrs. Crane, you must ask your questions in English.
Oh, my apologies, but the question was rather simple.
What was the question?
When I asked Mrs. Gordon if her husband was older than she, much older.
And your reply, Mrs. Gordon?
I said yes, and when he was jealous of me, he was a beast.
Thank you, Mrs. Crane, for bringing out that point. Mr. Van Stuylen, the witness is yours.
I also thank you, Mrs. Crane. Thank you for asking that question. We now know another reason Mrs. Gordon wanted her husband out of the way. She hated him. He was old and he was a beast. Thank you, Mrs. Crane. You have helped my case. Mrs. Gordon, before you married, you were a chorus girl in a Broadway musical play, weren't you?
Yes,
And you knew your husband was rich, didn't you?
but I didn't know it was money.
You wouldn't have married him if he had been poor, would you?
No, I was making enough money to support myself, but not a husband.
Then you did marry him for his money. And when you found out you couldn't get his money, you made up your mind to get it all by killing him.
No, I didn't kill him, I tell you.
Then why did you come back to him in the middle of the night when you knew all the servants in the house would be asleep?
Because
Why didn't you come to him during the day?
I knew my husband. He was always close with me, but he was less close late at night. And I thought if I came to him then, he wouldn't make a scene. But I was wrong. He was a monster, and he was insane with jealousy. That's why he tried to shoot me.
Mrs. Gordon, you knew your husband had left everything to you in his will, didn't you?
No, he never knew about his will.
Then why did you tell your maid that he did?
I never told her that. That was a lie.
Your Honor, may I ask another question?
Mr. Van Stuylen is examining the witness.
Mrs. Crane has my permission.
Thank you. Mrs. Gordon, did you engage your maid for an employment agency?
No, madame, it was through Chancey.
Chancey, and who is he?
Chancey Golden, my husband's nephew.
Your husband's nephew?
Oui, madame.
Well, then Chancey knew your maid?
When he gave her to us.
Gave her to you?
Oui, madame. When we were on our honeymoon, we visited Chancey and his wife, and Evelyn was working for them. And while I was there, we became quite friendly, and she asked if she couldn't come and work for us. And I said it would be lovely if it was agreeable to Chancey and his wife. And they said, why, certainly. So she returned to us. But she lied when she said my husband was cross to her and didn't like her. He was silly over any girl that was pretty.
Mrs. Gordon, had your husband ever been married before?
Your Honor, I object. My question is irrelevant.
On the contrary, Mr. Van Stuylen, it's most relevant. I'm trying to determine whether Mr. Gordon had any children by a former marriage.
Objection sustained. Proceed with the witness, Mrs. Crane.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Overruled. Proceed with the witness.
Well, thank you. Mrs. Gordon, had your husband ever been married before?
Yes, twice, but both wives divorced him.
And were there any children?
No, madame.
Was Chancey your husband's only relative?
Your Honor, I object. That question is irrelevant and material.
Mr. Van Stuylen, if you would please be patient. I'm trying to determine whether Mr. Gordon had any relatives besides Chancey.
Your Honor, I object. That question has nothing to do with this
It
case.
has everything to do with the case. If Chancey was Mr. Gordon's only relative, then he was Mr. Gordon's only heir before he married Mrs. Gordon.
All of which has nothing to do with this case. Your Honor, I object.
Objection overruled. Proceed with the witness, Mrs. Crane.
Thank you. Was Chancey your husband's only relative?
Oui, madame.
So then if you are convicted and executed, Chancey will inherit everything.
Your Honor, I object.
Your Honor, Mrs. Crane's question.
It wasn't a question. It was a statement, a declaration, a despicable insinuation of conspiracy. Your Honor, I object.
Objection sustained.
But your honor,
Objection sustained, Mrs. Crane, be seated.
Your Honor, I have a question.
Very well, the juror may ask it.
What church do you belong to?
Objection sustained. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, that concludes my instructions to the jury on the question law involved in this case. You will now retire to the jury room, and there you will weigh the evidence. And in light of that evidence alone, you will determine the innocence or the guilt of the defendant at the bar. Mrs. Yvette Gordon. The procedure in the jury room is quite simple. The foreman of the jury, fourth juror chosen, will preside over your deliberations and will take the votes or ballots of the jurors from time to time until a verdict has been arrived at. You will then return to this courtroom, and the foreman will inform the court after the verdict arrived at by the jury. You will be escorted to the jury room by an officer of the court. He will lock you in, and you will remain there until a verdict has been arrived at, or the jury has been dismissed by the court. And mark you, no juror shall be permitted to leave the jury room. That is the law. The penalty is imprisonment or fine or both. In cases of this character, the law can be found you are asked how you reached your verdict. You are under no obligation to anyone whatsoever to disclose the nature of the proceedings. In conclusion, the court would like to reiterate, nor can the court reiterate too emphatically, that you must reach a decision on the evidence and on the evidence alone. And the court reminds you again of the oath you took as jurors, that you will render a true verdict in accordance with the law and the evidence, so help you God. A violation of the oath is a criminal offense punishable by imprisonment. Officer, conduct the jury to the jury room.
Yes, Your Honor. This way, please.
Madame, please. Please don't let them shoot me, madame. I never did it. I promise I never did it, madame. Please. Oh, don't let them kill me, madame.
Here, buddy.
Oh, goodness, this air. Officer, open the window. I must have fresh air.
Yes.
Water now, water.
These little kids are last left.
Oh, officer, stop that noise.
Sorry, lady, I can't. It's coming from a radio store across the street. Have one?
No, thank you. My, isn't it warm? Say, don't we get any ice in this water?
Sure, lady, there is ice in it.
You're crazy. It's as hot as an old maid's tears. Oh, goodness, the dust!
Officer, justice table.
Yes, sir.
And these chairs, officer, the dust is an inch thick.
Yes, just a minute, lady. Just a minute.
Attention, everybody. I repeat, attention, everybody. As foreman of this jury,
Yes, indeed, Miss Frank. This old room can talk, it can tell very many interesting stories. Comedies, tragedies, and what have you.
attention, attention. As foreman of this jury,
Wait a minute, Foreman. I ain't had it here yet. It's against the law for the jury to talk about this case until they're all by themselves and locked in.
Hurry up, Luxon. I want to get out of here.
I've got a heavy face. And I'll get it late. I've only just been married. You know, I really must get home to my husband.
All right, ladies, I'm working as fast as I can.
be seated, everybody.
And send over there. I don't know.
Now listen, folks. If you need anything or want me for anything, just call me. I'll be sitting right outside the store all the time you're in here. That's what I'm here for. To wait on you and to make sure you don't get out.
Mr. Theodophilus, will you please be seated?
Sure, but I want to sit here. Come on, Scotty, beat it over there.
So do you want, but I'm sitting here and I'm very comfortable.
I want to get out of here. I've been home since the straw began.
Listen, you old crap. I'll give you $1 for this seat.
Alright, give me the dollar fast.
I object to that. Is bribery.
But it's no bribery. It's a legitimate business transaction. He wants something. I'm selling something to him.
Yeah, there's $1. I'll get the hell out of here.
I object. I object.
Sorry, ladies, but you're all wet.
Don't you sit down. Mr. McCabe, return that money.
I will not.
Now, just a minute. I've been on the jury before, and I know what the foreman is. You're not the boss of this outfit like the judge was. All you do is tell us when to vote and keep score. Outside that, you're no better than the rest of us. Don't let him make you kick back that $1, Scotty. Well, What are you trying to do? Cure for heart failure?
Mr. Beal, Miss Tate, will you please be seated?
Oh, yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, I may not be the boss, but I am foreman, and my duty as foreman is to see to it that everything is done in an orderly fashion in accordance with law. I don't know what kind of jury you are before, Mr. Theodophilus, but the members of this jury are going to behave like ladies and gentlemen.
Bravo! Bravo!
As foreman, I now call for your order. Is that woman who murdered her husband guilty or not? Miss Pratt, I delegate you to collect the ballots and act as official teller.
Thank you, Mr. Presley.
Excuse me, butting in, Presley. For the last jury I was on, we cut out that balloting stuff and we got through quick. We voted out loud. It's KO with the judge. Said he didn't give a damn how we voted, just as long as we came across with the verdict.
Mr. Braun, I accept your answer. The jury will vote by word of mouth in the order in which we were chosen. That gives me the first vote. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm a man without fear or prejudice. I listened to every word spoken at that trial. I took a solemn oath to render a true verdict in accordance with the law and the evidence. Ladies and gentlemen, just as sure as my name is J.J. Presley, that woman is guilty.
Mr. J.J. Presley, guilty.
Juror number 2, Mr. McKay.
But, Archie, yo, my name is Rich. That Mr. Presley is what I figured. You know, if he had been poor.
How do you vote? Guilty or not guilty?
Oh, I think she's guilty. But I just can't understand it killing her husband when it's money.
But you do think she killed him and you vote guilty.
Right?
Your first name, Mr. McKay.
I'm Drew McLaren McCabe.
Juror number 3, Mrs. McGuire.
Sure, and she killed him. The hussy. She was trying to be a peacock when the Lord made her a crow.
Then you vote guilty.
Then I'm saying she killed him. That means I'm voting guilty, don't it?
But you must say guilty or not guilty.
Guilty.
Your first name, Mrs. White.
Bridget.
Juror number 4, Mr. Beal. How do you vote? Guilty or not guilty?
Well, yes and no.
What do you mean by yes and no? Did she kill him or didn't she?
Well, she didn't kill him, but that I'm convinced thoroughly.
Then you vote guilty.
Well, yes, she was guilty of killing him, but I think she was.
But you do think she murdered him.
Well, yes, she did murder him, but that's when.
Don't beat around the bush. Did she murder him or didn't she?
Yes, she did.
Then you vote guilty.
Yes, I suppose I did.
First name.
Donkey.
Juror number 5, Mrs. Stace.
You think you're guilty, don't you? I don't see how any woman is ever justified in killing her husband. In fact, I don't see how she could ever dream of doing such a thing. I know I can never kill my Harry, no matter what he did to me.
Mrs. Stace, you vote guilty or not guilty. Did she murder her husband or didn't she?
Oh, yes, she murdered him. But as I say, I can't imagine myself killing my Harry.
Then you vote guilty.
Yes, you think you're guilty, don't you?
Mrs. Stace, guilty.
First name, Mrs. Davis.
Dixie.
Juror number 6, Mr. Daisy.
Mr. Foreman, with your kind permission, I would like to rise and make a few remarks before I cast my vote. All my life I've been taught to respect, indeed, revere womanhood. From my earliest infancy, I have placed women on the pedestal of purity. Oh, blessed and resplendent. The woman at the bar is a beautiful young woman. She has the charms of Tongue of Troy, the grace of Diana, and the allure of Cleopatra. But but unfortunately we must judge her by the evidence, and the evidence is against her. So, with profound regret, I vote guilty.
Your first name is Spencer, isn't it?
Yes, Spencer Beatty, for the state and
Juror number 7, Miss T.
I can't make a speech, but I feel sorry for that woman. And as long as I live to be 100 years old, I'm never going to serve on a jury.
Guilty or not guilty?
Guilty. First name, Cynthia.
Juror number 8, Mr. Brock.
She had a lousy lawyer. The best lawyer in the world couldn't save her. The evidence was against her. I vote guilty. Steve.
Juror number 9, Miss Mixter.
If you ask me, I think she's dumb. She was sitting pretty and didn't have the brains to wait till sugar daddy died of old age. So, she ups and thinks some.
Miss Mixter, will you please talk English?
I'm telling you, my God, guilty. Don't
Order.
you know your own language?
Order!
Your first name, Miss Mixer, maybe, and spell it with a Y and an E.
Juror number 10, Mr. Theodopoulos.
Sure, she killed him, but where she went wrong was using a gat. She ought to have done it clever so they couldn't have pinned it on her.
Then you vote guilty.
Yeah, I told you once.
First name,
Oh.
Miss Pratt, guilty or not guilty?
guilty. I knew it the instant I saw her. She had murder stamped all over her.
Well, you must pardon me, Miss Pratt, for differing from you, but there was nothing whatsoever in Mrs. Gordon's manner to suggest murderous. Your Honor, it is quite unnecessary to ask me how I vote, but I am absolutely convinced of Mrs. Gordon's innocence. Why, she's the most innocent woman in the world, and we hold her life in our hands. And I'm astounded that any of you could think for a moment that she committed that horrible crime. And it is incredible to me that anyone with the slightest gleam of intelligence could sit and listen to the evidence for 3 days and then sit here and deliberately vote that woman guilty. How could that my dear jurors, it is absolutely incredible to me that 11 sane men and women could be taken in by a particularly obvious adventuress like that maid, and why the chief harangue of an egotistic lawyer. The child listening to the testimonies you heard would have known that Mrs. Gordon was innocent. I didn't know it. My dear jurors, one at a time, please. Now, what were you saying?
Order!
My dear jurors, I am perfectly willing to answer any questions you may have, but you must not hurl them at me.
Mrs. Crane, you are entitled to your own opinion in this case, but you have no right to call the rest of the jury children because they don't agree with you.
If you ask me, I think you've got the hell of a nerve calling us out. Where do you get off calling us a bunch of nuts?
I didn't call you anything of the kind.
And who told you that hussy didn't murder her husband? Certainly did murder her, and the evidence proved it.
Now, Miss Pratt, when you voted Mrs. Gordon guilty, nothing was further from your mind than the evidence.
How dare you say that?
Come along. In your very next breath after saying guilty, you said I knew she was guilty the instant I saw her.
I did. She looked guilty.
Well, you can't wish me to believe you consider that evidence, do you?
It was evidence to me. I know a guilty face when I see one.
Well, I have no particular knowledge of your skill in that area, but experience has taught me that appearances are often completely deceptive. Now, there may be exceptions to the rule, but not in Miss Gordon's case.
You're all wet, both of you.
Certainly. Her face is out. Nothing goes but the evidence. Now get down to cases, Miss Crane.
Well, one moment, Mr. Brown. I'm foreman of this jury.
Then do your stuff. I got a wife, 2 kids, and a gas station waiting for me, and I want to get out of here.
Me too. I'm hungry.
You and me both, kids.
Order! stop interrupting. Mrs. Gray, 11 of this jury voted Mrs. Gordon guilty. You alone voted not guilty. As foreman, I ask you to explain your vote.
Why, there is nothing to explain. I know Mrs. Gordon did not kill her husband.
You know she didn't?
Positively.
But how do you know, Miss Gray? What proof have you that she is innocent?
My instinct proved it.
Your instinct?
Why, yes. Women's intuitive faculty that is often more reliable than man's reasoning power. Yes, one in whom persuasion and belief had ripened into faith, and faith become a passionate intuition. Now that answers your question, doesn't it?
Presley, call the officer.
What?
Call the officer and tell him to tell the judge to dismiss us. I was on a jury with a woman like her once. We never did get a verdict. She held out till the end, so we might as well quit right now. They start pulling that highbrow stuff. Nothing nor nobody can change their minds.
Now, Mr. Brom, I realize perfectly that you've had a great deal more experience in jury matters than we have, but I also realize that you are a highly intelligent and fair-minded man, and so you will grant me privilege voting according to my conviction. And it is my conviction that Mrs. Gordon is innocent.
But Mrs. Crane, we can't remain here forever. If we don't reach a verdict within a reasonable time period, the judge will dismiss us. And this case will have to be tried all over again. And that costs money. And the taxpayers have to pay.
Mr. Presley, I cannot vote guilty because of the taxpayers.
Mrs. Gordon is a guilty woman, and the evidence proves it.
It most certainly did. I'm glad you refer to that. Now, we listened to the evidence for 3 days. Part of it was intended to prove Mrs. Gordon guilty, and the other part to prove her innocent. Now, she could not be both. But it is possible that some of the witnesses may have, well, forgotten that they had sworn to tell the truth. It's been known to happen. From Pilate's day down, the queer thing is that those that are chosen to pass judgment often form directly opposite views of the same testimony. Now, I know nothing of psychology or science, but one sometimes wonders whether these divergencies are not due to some chemical or cosmic imbalance which keeps us from coming even a little closer to anything even slightly resembling civilization. Now, here in the jury room, we furnish a little example. Not little, however, to Mrs. Gordon. Right, the door.
Get down to cases, Miss Frank. Get down to cases.
I got the big words and talk sense.
Order! Order!
Listen, I'm hungry, and I don't want to wait any longer. Officer! Officer, come here!
Silence!
Hey, go ahead, kid. He has no right to stop you. She has as much right to call the officer as you do.
Officer! Officer, come in here!
What's the matter? Somebody fighting?
No, but I'm hungry enough to fight. I want something to eat. That to me too, officer. Oh, I'm starving.
All right, lady, but you gotta eat here.
What do you mean? Gotta eat here.
Yes, ma'am, this is a murder case. You gotta eat right here, clear through. Tell me what you want, and I'll have it fetched to you. What a time! What do you think I am, a microphone? Now listen, folks. One at a time means one at a time.
Attention! The jury will order by number.
Fine. That gives you the first crack. Hurry up and order. I'm starving.
Wait a minute. If Mary's gonna order once, I'm gonna sit down. I better sit. All right, shoot. J.J. Presley.
1 piece of apple pie and 1 bottle of milk, certified.
Is that all?
Yes, that has been my supper for 35 years now. I've never had a sick day.
Mr. Presley.
Next, number 2.
1 Porter Roosty. A good one.
Rare, medium, or done?
Underdone. And everything that comes with it. And ice cream for dessert.
All right, Amy, what kind of cream? Pistachio?
Aye, I might as well see in the Goonies paying for it.
It doesn't. It used to, but this new administration's cutting expenses. You pay for it.
I pay for it? Oh, just give me a cup of coffee and a donut.
Mr. McKay.
Next, number 3.
Enough, officer. I'll have corned beef and Thank goodness to see the fish cut. His golden orders for silver.
Bill! Are you ordering or ain't you?
Oh, that's the thing. Oh, you must have something if it's only orange juice. Very well then, orange juice. I'm next, but don't you think you excuse me for just long enough to have dinner with my husband? We've only just been married.
Not a chance in the world, lady. You gotta stay right here and clear your throat. Now, what do you eat?
Oh, I don't know. Anything.
Miss Stacy, make up your mind.
I'm sorry. Excuse me. Just a little tea and a muffin, and I was aware for telephone.
There ain't no telephone. It's against the law to have one in the jury room.
My goodness, being on the jury is like being in jail. Yes, Miss Craig.
Next, number 6.
Dabla dough. Dinners for 2, officer.
2.
Yes, 2 of you, please.
Mr. Daisy.
Your pleasure, Mr. Brand.
Next, number 7.
Next.
She's all set with the boyfriend.
Roast beef, medium, lots of it.
At last. Thank God.
Shoot the works, kid. This one's on me.
All right, but don't blame me if you drop dead. 1 pasta. A fruit salad. Some caviar. And a plate steak.
Listen, kid, I'm feeding you. Not the whole damn Jewy.
Why do you think I order a peanut? When I eat on a gentleman friend, I eat. I wasn't in show business for nothing, you know.
Stop your fooling. You never was in show business.
I was so.
Oh dear, are you an actress? Are you on the stage?
Sure, Missenheimer's chorus.
Oh, that is a very nice one.
Sure, and I'd still be working for him if my old man didn't want me to sell tickets in front of his old movie house.
All right, make that 2. What's she order? You can't scare me like that, kid. I just love to go dog feeding you.
Miss Baker, Mr. Peter.
What do you want?
Next, number 11. Number 11.
Oh, 1 lamb chop and pineapple.
Next and last.
Oh, yes, you'll pardon me. 1 moment, I'm sure, officer. I'm next. Yes, this is my order. And if you would be so good as to do me just one more great favor and give this note to my chauffeur, for my maid, of course.
Oh, certainly, Mrs. Crane. Glad to do it. I'll phone him to come right down.
Thank you.
All right, folks. I'll hustle that revenue to you just as quick as I can.
Sure, do that before you have to haul me out of here in a box.
And bring some electric fans too. It's hot as hell in here.
Listen, Tony. This is a jury room, not a hotel.
Attention, everybody. Be seated quickly. We want to carry out our deliberations so that we may go and enjoy the evening at home.
Sure, make it snappy. Don't want to spend the rest of my life in this dump.
Now, Mrs. Grant, why do you think Mrs. Gordon is not guilty?
Now, Mr. Presley, why do you think Mrs. Gordon is guilty?
The evidence, Mrs. Crane, the evidence.
Yes, but which evidence? Which part of that?
All of it. Testimony from May the first day alone was enough to convict her.
Yes, Mr. Presley, but her maid was not telling the truth.
She was. I watched her every second she was testifying.
I admit that she may have been a diabolically clever young lady, but she was lying.
How dare you say that? That means she was not lying. That Lord Van Stein had to drag every word out of her, and it provoked her to tell her poor dirty.
I felt sorry for the girl.
So did I. She had me falling all over the place.
Which is precisely what the prosecution wanted her to do. You felt sorry for her, so you believed her.
I didn't feel sorry for her. I believed it because I knew she was telling the truth. And I knew Mrs. Gordon was lying.
And how did you know nervous because she's French.
Rubbish!
Have you known very many French people, Miss Pratt?
No, and I don't want to. France is a land of inequity and vice. Every French husband has a mistress, and every French wife a lover. And I have never seen a French woman yet who could be trusted out of her sight when it came to men. If she is a French woman, she is a bad woman. That is my motto.
Now wait a minute, Mr. Pratt. You're a lady and I'm a gentleman, so I can't call you a liar. But anybody who says that about a French woman is a liar.
Order, Mr. Braun, order!
Mr. Preston, I demand an apology.
Try and get it. I married a French girl when I was over there with the AEF, and I know damn well she isn't playing around with any other man.
Ha stop your fooling.
Listen, big boy, I'll pay you 150. I can take your wife away the first day I'm not busy.
Which one?
This one, right? Lousy thing, right? No more lousy thing.
Arrest that man!
Try it, do it. I've got a permit to open.
Show it!
Take phone here.
All right, you can't leave it in here. No guns allowed in the jury room. If anyone else keeps talking about this, you are come across.
Well, I'm not. I can't see for any of these people, but I am certainly not armed.
All right, then behave yourselves. If anyone else starts fighting, call me. What I'm here for.
Mr. Rom, we have you to thank for that disgraceful episode.
Think yourself, Mr. Pratt. You started it planning my wife.
I never mentioned your wife.
Same thing. You panned the hell out of French women, and she's a fraud.
Order, Mr. Braun!
Lay off me, will ya? You let her get away with murder, and then you holler order at me.
Mr. Foreman, now that we've had that brief and diverting intermission, may I suggest we take another vote?
You have decided to change your mind.
I should appreciate another opportunity to vote.
Attention, everybody. We will now take another ballot. Miss Pratt, are you ready for the second ballot?
Yes, Mr. President.
I'll vote guilty. Mr. McKay? Guilty. Mrs. McGuire?
Guilty.
Mr. Beal?
Guilty.
Mrs. Dace?
Guilty.
Mr. Dace? Guilty. Miss Tate?
Guilty.
Mr. Braun?
How do you like that?
Mr. Braun, as foreman, I demand to know why you changed your vote.
Because I wanted to.
You swore to decide this case on the law and the evidence.
Listen, lady, don't tell me how to vote. I've been on a jury before, and I'll vote any damn way I please.
Order! Order!
You're a nice mess, that's right. What'd you make him sore for? Now we'll never get out of here. I've got a date. A heavy date with my hottest sweetie.
Yeah, who is he?
When you like to know.
Order! Still vote. Miss Mixter, how do you vote?
Guilty, but make her keep still.
Mr. Theodophilus?
Guilty.
Miss Pratt?
Guilty.
Mrs. Craig?
Not guilty.
Say, how long are you gonna keep us here anyway? He'd all be through by now if it wasn't for you.
That is true, Miss Mixter. And I believe you said you had something to do. What was it? Oh, yes, a heavy date. Personally, I think a heavy date is the most fascinating thing in the world. Certainly a much nicer thing for a young lady to keep them than to remain in this stupid place. But unfortunately, Mrs. Gordon is waiting to see what we'll do with her.
Mrs. Gordon murdered her husband in cold blood.
She didn't do anything of the kind. I insist on stating my interpretation of the entire case. The moment I heard that name, Chauncey Gordon, I was amazed that that utterly stupid and inefficient lawyer, Mrs. Gordon, didn't recognize the name and follow up on it. Why, everyone knows that Chauncey was Mr. Gordon's only heir before he married Mrs. Gordon. Now, what could be more natural than him wanting to separate Mrs. Gordon from his uncle? Now, that maid lied, and she lied to the jury because she knew that if Mrs. Gordon was obliterated, Chauncey would reward her sumptuously. Now, isn't there an idea That's
Sure, cut that Chauncey stuff. Talk sense.
I am talking sense, but you people don't seem to understand sense when you hear it. I'm giving you good reasons for believing that that maid was lying, and you won't even discuss them.
That maid was telling the truth, and anyone with an open mind would know it. But you have an open mind. You won't listen to reason, you won't listen to the evidence, you won't listen to anything but your own narrow prejudice. You call it instinct, but I call it prejudice.
Mrs. Gordon tells the truth. I believe her and you don't, so I am prejudiced.
Oh, rubbish! She was acting!
Of course she was acting. She was an actress when Gordon married her, and Van Styne proved it.
On the contrary, Mr. Presley, Van Styne proved she was a chorus girl. But if you'll remember correctly, he proved nothing wrong about her character. Now, you don't know anything against chorus girls, do you, Mr. Presley?
I don't have to. Everybody knows what a chorus girl is.
Oh, yeah.
Have you known very many chorus girls?
No,
Personally?
I'm a clean-minded, law-abiding, self-respecting citizen.
And so am I. I'm a clean-minded, law-abiding, self-respecting citizen, too. Why, you and I are the same kind of New Jersey citizens. But I happen to know several chorus girls. These particular girls have married into very good New Jersey families and are excellent wives and mothers.
I don't believe it! As an officer of the Roseville Society for the Suppression and Surveillance Device, I made a thorough study of the subject, and I found that every chorus girl is kept woman, and every fallen woman started falling on the stage.
That's a damn lie. I was on the stage once and I wasn't kept and I didn't fall. I know chorus girls right now that are just as straight as you and maybe straighter.
Order, Miss Nixon, order!
Now, Miss Mixter, don't strike Miss Pratt. You know you wouldn't hurt her for the world.
Mr. Presley, I demand an apology!
You and who else?
Order! Order!
Mr. Presley, you're quite correct. We're going to be just as orderly as we can. And this nice young lady's going to be the most orderly of all. I realize perfectly that Miss Pratt has had considerable opportunity to study particular people in her upbringing. I'm glad you appreciate that fact. Yes, I'm sure in your wonderful field, Miss Pratt, you've come to know the peculiarities of the various classes fairly well. But I'm sure that when you've had a bit more time to study the chorus girl department of life, you'll find that it's just like every other department of life. No fundamental differences, why, not a particle. Light and shade, as it were.
Her? See that? She can't see anything but dirt, the old buzzer.
Order, Miss Nixon! I won't allow you to insult Miss Pratt.
Insult her? She's lucky I don't cut her throat.
Mr. Foreman, now that we've had another brief and exciting interlude, may I suggest we take another vote?
No! Yes! And if you want to know how I'm voting, I'll tell you right now. Not guilty.
That's not what you do. What do you mean, insulting my pal?
Don't call me officer! Officer! Officer!
What are you gonna do? Have him arrest me for changing my mind?
No! I want the judge to come here. I want him to know what's going on in here.
The judge ain't allowed in here. No one can come in here but me.
Then I'll go to the judge.
Sorry, lady, you can't go. You can't leave this room till the judge says so.
Then
Nobody.
you go to the judge. Tell him that Miss Mixter and Mrs.
Lady, don't say another word. It's against the law for anyone on the jury to tell anyone off the jury anything about anything. You can't even tell me. There's nothing left for you both to do but fight out amongst yourselves. That's the law.
Oh, baby.
Mr. Presley, I ordered them to stop that exhibition.
Now, Miss Pratt, let them alone. They're young. We were young once. But I admit there's nothing graceful about it. A certain now that is thing I want to you know, Miss Pratt, I don't think the effect of watching it will destroy our moral fiber.
Well, I say it is indecent, immoral, and obscene, and it has got to stop. Miss I wasn't asleep. I heard you tell Van Styles that you didn't know Mr. Gordon, but I think you did. And I think you're trying to save his wife in the electric chair because you're glad she killed him.
Naive, but a gorgeous illumination of that quaint little mind. of
You
yours.
did know Gordon, didn't you?
No, I do not know Gordon.
Then why are you trying to save Mrs. Gordon?
Because she's innocent.
Prove it!
I don't have to. You do. The judge said so. The judge said the burden of proof rested on the prosecution.
Van Styles did prove her guilty.
Not to me. Mrs. Kramer, all we're going to do? I simply must get home and look after my husband. We can't stay here forever. Now, Miss Davis, I understand how eager you are to get home to your husband, but it isn't possible, even for that reason, that you have me allow Mr. Presley to browbeat me into sending an innocent woman to the electric chair, would you?
Mrs. Crane, I have tried to treat you like a gentleman. I have reasoned with you. I have pleaded with you to vote on the evidence, but you refused. And now you deliberately insult me by accusing me of trying to browbeat you. That I will not stand for.
What are you going to do?
Phone the judge that this jury can't agree for him to dismiss us. Officer, come in here. And believe me, Mrs. Crane, the next time Mrs. Gordon is tried, she will be convicted. After what has happened here, Van Styles will see to it that no narrow-minded, hair-brained, stubborn little society woman ever gets on the next jury.
Stop talking, everybody. Your grub's here.
Never mind the proof. You tell the
The
judge.
judge ain't here. He's gone home. Now listen, everybody. Ordinarily, I'd make them wait to leave that grub out there. I'd bring it in myself. There's so darn much of it. I'm gonna let them bring it in. But only under one condition. You folks don't mention this case while they're in here. Don't speak to them.
Stop your fooling. We gotta speak to him when we pay him.
You ain't gonna pay him. You're gonna pay me, and I'll pay him afterwards.
Fine, what's the split? 50-50?
There ain't no split. Alright, folks, fetch it in. Right down here. Put it on the table and then read it. And don't talk to the jury. You ain't allowed to here. Get out there and found it for all that stuff. Hey, now don't go getting in a hurry. Everybody's name's almost in order.
Mr. Officer, would it be possible for you to bring me just a small table?
Certainly, Mrs. Crane. Good idea. There'll be room at this table for everybody. You never see such a hungry jerk.
Hey, Steve. How's the gang do today? Great, I had $10 on that game. Hey, what the homework you at? I mean, the bag, you want to eat homework?
Slim! Cut that out! I told you not to talk to the jury. Mrs. Crane, here's your table. Where do you want it?
Right here will be fine, thank you, officer.
Officer, phone the judge. Phone the judge this jury can't agree and for him to dismiss us. And tell him I said so.
No, officer, please don't do that. We've just begun.
Do as I say.
No, officer, we've just begun to discuss the evidence, Mr. Presley.
Telephone the judge.
All right, you're the foreman.
Miss Tate, Mr. Beale, this table's for you.
Oh, thank you, Mrs. Crane, but we were only having orange juice. You and Mr. J can take it.
Thank you, Mrs. Day.
I'm sorry, Miss Tate, but you are mistaken. I took it upon myself to see that you and Mr. Beale should have something better than orange juice for dinner. Bring the chairs down, please. Well, who's going to take care of you if I don't?
Thank you, Mrs. Crane. That's so sweet of you.
Not at all. You must be taken care of. After all, you are here in the cause of justice, are you not?
Yes, Mrs. Crane.
Just think of the truly awful responsibilities that's been placed on your young shoulders.
Yes,
Do you realize it?
yes, Mrs. Crane. Indeed, I do.
I don't.
Mrs. Crane,
Yes.
here's your order. When I gave it to the cook, I told him it was for you and to be careful with it. And he was so darn careful he forgot to give it to the waiters. It just come. Where'll I put it?
Right down here, please. Thank you.
Mrs. Crane, thank you. This is so sweet of you. I didn't realize I was hungry until
stop talking until I get out of here?
Hey, Bill, bring me some camels.
Bring me some lunches, I'm out.
Me too. Bring me some pal mouths and some gum.
And candy, officer. Candy for the ladies and cigars for the gentlemen.
Oh, and buy that candy in my store.
Have you got a candy store?
I got 10 candy stores, me and my brothers.
Oh, how lovely.
Officer, have you phoned the judge?
I've been in here. You want me to phone the judge?
Yes?
Hold on, I'm coming.
Here you are, my dears. Have you everything you wish? Yes, thank you, Mrs. Crane.
Good God, who's that for?
Why, not at all.
Mrs. Crane, here's the rest of your order. Those waiters are good with the heat. They forgot this too.
Well, there must be some mistake. Well, as long as it's here, it must not go to waste. What is it?
A steak? And what a steak.
Oh, Mrs. Crane, don't misunderstand me. I'm not asking you to give me the steak. Just for you not to waste it.
By all means, officer, present the steak to Mr. McKay with my compliments.
Thank you, Mrs. Crane. It's a strange coincidence, but I was very nearly ordering steak myself. It's a good thing I did. I had a cold collation, what you might call a cup of coffee and a donut. I'll do justice to this.
You hurry and order that steak. I object. Now you're my right, that girl.
Ladies, will you please stop talking till I get out of here? I mustn't hear anything you say.
Stop your fooling. I bet you keep your ear glued to that door every minute.
I do not. I'm miles away from you. Smoke it.
Bill, are you gonna bring me my lunches or not?
Officer, would you telephone my husband that I won't be home for dinner?
I've already told him. He was here an hour ago asking for you.
He was?
Yes, and he told me to tell you your cat had come back.
Oh, how fortunate. Had you lost your cat in the States?
Mrs. Crane, we are not here to discuss cats. As woman's jury, I demand an explanation. Why did you order that? Are you driving us to vote not guilty?
Why, Mr. Preston.
Yes or no? Are you?
No, most emphatically no. I protest against that outrageous accusation. Why, Miss Crane and Mr. Beale are young. Youth must have nourishment. It cannot subsist on orange juice alone. In regard to Mr. McKay, yes, I did order him that steak. See, I told you. But not as a bribe. I ordered it for Mr. McKay for reasons of purest sentiment. Why, he was Scotsman, and most of my ancestors were Scotch. That's why I ordered him the steak. Oh, rubbish! I have Scotch ancestors, but I am not buying Mr. McKay beefsteak in their memory, and neither are you. You are trying to bribe him. Now, Mr. Crabbe, if I was trying to bribe Mr. McKay, I'd offer him something much more alluring and equal to taste and then something much more potent. But no matter what I offered Mr. McKay, he would not accept it. Why, he's not that kind of man.
You're right, Mrs. Crane. I'm a man of honor.
And I knew it the moment I saw you, Mr. McKay.
From the moment I saw you, Mrs. Crane, I knew that you were a lady.
How very nice.
That must be a good steak. You've seen her in a minute.
Such vulgarity!
I said her, not you.
Mr. McKay, tell me what part of Scotland you're from.
I'm Mrs. Crane. I come from the best part of Scotland, Balmoral.
Balmoral? Why, what a coincidence. You know, Mr. Daisy, the finest gardener I ever had was from Balmoral. Oh, and what beautiful roses he grew for me. Yes, every year his roses won the blue ribbon.
Bah, Mrs. Crane, blue ribbons are nothing to me. I've grown roses that were grown by a queen.
Then you are a gardener too, Mr. McKay?
Aye, and Her Most Gracious Majesty Queen Victoria herself wore a spray me roses in her dining jubilee.
Well, what an honor, Mr. McKay. What an honor.
You know, Mrs. Crane, I could grow just as good roses for you too if you were to engage me as your gardener.
Oh, well, I should love to engage you as my gardener, Mr. McKay, but of course I can't. That is not now, then I would surely be accused of bribing you, if you know what I mean. I object.
my marvelous health. Harmony and delightful company, that is.
Yes, and who could ask for more delightful company than our scintillating friends gathered here? And of course, our collegiate neighbors have you everything you wish, my dear.
Yes, Mrs. Crane, thank you.
Why, Mr. Beale, what a beautiful book! Oh, are you an author? I think you are. You write poetry.
Well, yes, Mrs. Crane, I'm making poetry my life's work. But this is not mine, it is Shakespeare.
Oh, my sweet swan of Avon, forever our best beloved.
Oh, he's one of my favorites too, Mrs. Crane.
Well, read us something, Mr. Beale. Poems of mature genius interpreted by youthful genius. Do you know, my friend, this is beginning to seem more like a salon than a jury room. Go on from where you are.
Well, I'm at Beatrice and Benedict in the church. Sweet hero. He does approve the height of a man that has slandered, scorned, and dishonored mine. Sweet villain, she is wrong. She is undone.
Oh, that I were a man for his sake, or that I had any friend would be a man for my sake, but manhood is melted into compliments. Valor into courtesy, and he is now as valiant as Hercules that only tells a lie and swears it. Oh, that I were a man, I would eat his heart in the marketplace. Oh, wonderful! The quality of mercy is not strange. I interrupted like the gentle rain. Oh, perfectly wonderful! Oh, if you read with such abandon and passion, he has an exquisite appreciation, don't you think so?
Yes, I could listen to him forever.
I object.
We are not in Greenwich Village. We are here to discuss the evidence.
How's the evidence? Forget it.
Order! Order!
That's what I said to Bride. We've been ragging about the evidence ever since we came in here, and I don't want to hear it mentioned again until I'm through eating, all right?
I am.
So am I.
Well, I'm not, and I don't want to hear it mentioned again until I've had my coffee and a smoke.
Mr. Brown, the taxpayers of this county are not paying us to drink coffee and smoke. They are paying us to render a verdict, and I intend to do mine. Attention, everybody. We will now take another ballot. I vote guilty. Mr. McKay.
Guilty.
When we voted before, I was not myself. I was clearly on an empty stomach. Now that I've replenished my inner mind, I can see the end in my ways. I vote not guilty.
Mr. McGuire.
Stop yelling at me. I haven't sold my vote yet. I vote guilty.
Mr. Beale.
Not guilty, and don't accuse me of selling my vote for food. Mrs. Crane has a soul, and it's the soul of a poet. A soul like that can't be wrong about this soul.
You are under oath to judge this case on the evidence, not on Mrs. Crane's soul.
Stop talking, everybody.
Hey, did you get my gum?
Have you phoned the judge?
Yes, and he says you must be crazy.
What?
That's what he said. Then he followed me out for phoning him. He says I have to know by this time that he never discharged the jury in a murder case. So they've been out 2 days and 2 nights.
2 days and 2 nights!
Yes, ma'am. 2 days and 2 nights.
Mrs. Crane, we have beauty to take this.
Mr. Davy, this dinner is absolutely delicious.
Stop talking, everybody. Coming in. Mrs. Crane, here's your bags. They do come. Where'll I put them?
Oh, right there will be fine, officer, thank you. And thank you for giving my note to my chauffeur.
Don't mention it, Mrs. Crane. Always glad to oblige a lady.
Mr. Officer, are we supposed to stay here all night?
You will if you don't reach a verdict.
But I didn't bring anything with me. I'm not prepared. I didn't bring anything with me.
Well-
Sir, what do you mean not telling me? What do you mean? Why didn't you tell me?
Don't blame me, lady. Don't blame me. I can't think of everything. Why don't you get your head like Mrs. Crane?
Mrs. Crane, do you know we were staying here all night? Yes, dear. And do something for me.
Yes, Mrs. Crane?
I'd like you to get me some cots.
Cots.
Yep, cots. For these poor people. Well, they can't sleep like this.
All right. Maybe I can borrow some from the jails.
Thank you.
Officer,
Oh, Mr. Presley, I thought you were sleeping.
what was she saying to you?
Now, that's not really necessary, is it, Mr. Presley?
She asked you to do something for her. What was it?
She asked me to get some cots.
Cops?
Yes, cots. For the jury. And I said maybe I can have them borrow some from the jail. I'll have them here for tomorrow night.
Thank you. And thank you for telling Mr. Presley I doubted you would have believed me.
Don't mention it, Mrs. Crane. I'll be glad to oblige the wait.
I didn't wake you, did I, Mr. Presley? Now that everyone's sleeping and everything's quiet, suppose we talk things over. Just between ourselves. I'm sure we can come to an understanding.
No! I speak only in the presence of the entire jury. I would believe in secret diplomacy.
Mr. Presley, that's not secret diplomacy. It's just an informal discussion between two people. Now, that's modern diplomacy, ultra modern. Now, I'm sorry, I haven't been understand typed off you, but you will join me in a cigarette, won't you?
No! I don't smoke.
But you will discuss it, won't you?
No! Now please, let me go to sleep.
Oh, now, Mr. Presley, do you
Stop talking to me and let me go to sleep.
Reach me beyond words to have you speak to me like this. As I've said before, I've never had the pleasure of meeting you, but I've always heard that you were a leader in the civic life of Rosedale. I've always highly respected you as a man of breadth and vision, a man to whom the rising generation can look as a symbol of the perfect citizen. But hearing you speak this way, well, I hate to say it, but I must. I find you are a stubborn, self-righteous bigot.
Mrs. Crane, if you are not going to let me sleep here, I'll go somewhere where I can sleep.
Well, I don't care where you go, I'll follow you.
You can't come in here. You're not allowed here.
Harry, darling, are you sure you locked the doors with the cat?
Alonzo,
Did I kick you again?
No, but you wiggled around and woke me up.
Sorry, Mimi. I was dreaming of you. Dancing with you. Gee, you're pretty, Mimi. Even when you're sore on me. You're pretty.
What are you trying to do? Surprise me?
Listen, kid. I could wear a ball and chain for you and like it. What do you say? Will you slip it on me?
If I ever put a ball and chain on you, it'll be around your neck and you in the river.
No kidding, Mimi. I'm nuts over you. You had me calling for help the first minute I saw you. 2 days and 2 nights, talking to you and looking at you and eating with you and sleeping by you. Mimi, when we get out of here, I'm going to put a ring on your finger and a ring in my nose. You're going to think this now. Are you on?
You're the cream in my coffee. You're the salt in my
You mean it, kid? You'll step up with me when we get off this jewelry?
You will always be my necessity. I'd be lost without you. Stop it! Stop that noise! How dare you wake me when I'm all tired out!
My God, it's late.
Stop that noise! Man's asleep with all this racket.
Bobby, come in here.
What's the trouble now? We taking another bullet?
No, you're not wrong. You're the proof valid.
Then why are you staying here, Mr. Presley?
Don't ask foolish questions. We are staying here because we have to. The judge won't dismiss us.
Yes, you enjoy. God, keep me down here. Hold me the top. Guilty. You pig-headed mule.
Don't you call me a mule.
That's a lot more, you fat-headed jackass.
You should be ashamed of yourself. All of you. Mr. Presley and I are writing you something. Yet you insult us by holding out against us. And in the cause of justice.
Justice your foot. You've both been 8 to 4 not guilty. Had you for 24 hours.
And 48 hours ago, the vote was 11 to 1 guilty. And we would have had a verdict of guilty on the first ballot. And for that, Mrs. Crane, she's the one that's keeping us here.
Good morning, everyone. Shiver out your eyes, Presley. Why, Mr. Presley, what ballot are you taking now?
No ballot, I'm through.
Oh, have you resigned your position as foreman?
I have not. I am still foreman.
Well, then we must go right on voting. After all, it is our duty. Now, is everyone here? Yes?
I believe Daisy, is it?
Daisy? Mr. Daisy?
Stay where you are. There isn't gonna be any ballot. Oh, Mrs. Crane. Starting right here side. Starting before the battle began.
Why, not at all, Mr. Daisy. This is the third day of the battle, and history is repeating itself. All the great battles of the world were won on the third day.
Is that so? You won't win this battle. I'll vote against you till they carry me out of here on a stretcher.
Oh, no, you won't. And you aren't going out of here on a stretcher. If you don't vote not guilty on the next ballot, you're going out that window and all the road.
Now, we must not use violence.
Well, listen to me, Miss Crane.
No, Mr. Brown, no violence.
Mrs. Crane, let me sock him. That's the only thing. I want to get out of here. I want to go fishing.
And you are going to fishing, Mr. Brown.
But wait. If I have to stay here much longer, I'll be too tired to fish. Wait, Miss Crane, I'm all worn out.
Let me too, Mrs. Brown. Come on,
I'm all tired.
Now, dear comrades, we're all tired. We're all on edge. We're all
Mrs. Crane, have you any idea how many more days and nights you're going to be here?
No, officer, we shall remain here indefinitely, if necessary, indefinitely.
Take all the time you want, Mrs. Crane. It's all right with me. It's what I'm paid for.
Officer, tell the judge this jury is hopelessly deadlocked and to discharge him.
Officer, present Judge Fish with my compliments and tell him the vote is 8-4 and the prospects of a verdict growing brighter every minute.
Do as I say.
Officer, suppose you give the judge both messages.
All right, I've been waiting on juries for 20 years. When it's a fighting jury, I don't take no chances. I'm not everybody.
So, Mr. Foreman, shall we take another vote?
No!
Yes! Go ahead, Mr. Crane. I was on a jury when the foreman refused to take any more ballots. You know what we did?
What?
Told him to go to hell and took one anyhow.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Attention, everyone, we will now take another ballot. Ballot number 123. Mr. Brown, will you please act as teller?
Sure.
Mrs. Crane, I'm foreman of this jury, and if there's going to be any balloting done, I'll do it.
By all means, I've no desire to usurp your privileges.
Attention, everybody. We will now take another ballot. I vote guilty. Mr. McKay,
See, Miss People? Guilty.
Mr. McGuire. Wake up.
Mrs. McGuire, wake up! How do you vote? You know very well how I vote. Seen it before. Not guilty.
But not young. Oh, my cow. What then I wanna see?
Miss Mickey, stop that noise. We are voting.
Oh, yes, baby, but you just show the world to me.
You're not allowed to play a musical instrument in the jury room. We are not here to entertain ourselves. Where did you get that thing?
I told my mother to put it in my hat box when I sent home for my toothbrush. Miss Crane, do you object?
Why, not at all. I enjoy it. Voting to music is delightful.
Good. It takes someone like you to appreciate my art.
Presley, can you go on without this lather's drying on my face?
Mr. Beale,
Not guilty?
Mrs. Davis.
Not guilty.
What? No, you can't. I'm
sorry, Mr. Presley. I'm sorry, but I can't do it any longer. I'll have to have this as long as I can. I got steak in my honeymoon, but I got put on this darn old jury. I can't do it any longer. I want to go home. I want my parents.
You poor dear. Of course she wants to win. But remember, dear, we're on the jury now. We must be brave.
I can't be brave.
Oh, sweet home. Sounds so good to me.
Miss Nixon, stop that noise.
Fine. If it gripes you, I'll go where I can play myself.
Don't go in there. We are voting.
If you need me, page me.
You ought to be ashamed of yourself getting for that disgraceful costume.
She's jealous of the kid's shape. I'd like to see you in that pajama.
Order. Mr. Daisy, how do you vote?
Not guilty.
What?
Mr. Dick!
Mr. Presley, perhaps I should explain why I've changed my vote.
You most assuredly should, Mr. Daisy. We all know why. Mrs. McGuire and Mr. McHagg and Miss Tate changed their votes. They were bribed.
Oh, shut up.
But you?
That's not right. Mrs. Crane isn't giving me this elegant outfit. She's only lending it to me. And you heard what she said for yourself when I asked her if she didn't want to hire me for her coat.
And she did. She said no, but she meant yes.
She did not.
Silence, Mrs. McGuire. Mr. Daisy has the floor. Why have you changed your vote?
Because I've changed my mind.
But why? The evidence hasn't changed.
Why so, Mr. Presley? But my interpretation of the evidence has changed.
Did Mrs. Crane talk to you while you were asleep?
She did.
But not about the case.
What were you talking about?
We
convinced me, beyond a shadow of doubt, that Mrs. Crane's instinct is infallible.
So, now you are following Mrs. Crane's instinct.
No. But having been convinced that Mrs. Crane's instinct was infallible, I began to reconsider the evidence. I went to sleep that night with the evidence and Mrs. Crane's illuminating remark, and when I slept, my subconscious mind sifted the wheat from the chaff, the truth from the fabrication, and when I awoke, I had my verdict. Not guilty.
Nonsense! You changed it because Mrs. Crane vouched you. My dear Miss Pratt, you did! You deliberately vouched you
What you did?
Well, I appreciate the compliment, of course, but in all justice to myself, Mr. Presley, I did not deliberately set about to convince Mr. Davis of the infallibility of my instinct. He discovered it himself, quite by chance. But last evening, when the jury was slumbering and Mr. Daisy and I were chatting, he remarked that he was a realtor. And I said without thinking, and of course without design, yes, and you were an honest realtor. He admitted it, but was surprised I had called him honest. He told me everyone he'd known before in his life thought of realtors as thieves and rascals and robbers of the worst sort. And then he asked me why I thought he was honest, and I told him my instinct told me he wasn't.
And you didn't say
She didn't. She convinced me. And from now on, I vote not guilty.
Mr. Daisy, you can vote not guilty, and everyone on this jury can vote not guilty from now until doomsday. It won't help Mrs. Gordon one jot or tittle. I'm going to vote guilty to the end, and one vote will prevent her acquittal. So you can keep right on bribing and stamping Mrs. Crane. Most you can get from Mrs. Gordon is a new trial, and that means conviction.
My God! You're not still talking, are you?
Say, you wouldn't happen to have a piece of cat gut in your pocket, would you? I busted one of my strings.
No! And if I did, I wouldn't give it to you.
Mrs. Crane, with your permission, I would like to.
By all means, Mr. Daisy. Perhaps you other gentlemen would like to shave too.
We aren't here to shave.
But Mr. Presley, you know, a shave is so refreshing. It may help you to think clearly. You know that both of my husbands, yes, both of them, did practically all of their thinking with a shaving brush in one hand and a razor in the other.
It's the only time they could think with you for a while. God, don't you ever stop talking? That woman is guilty, but and you know, but you're so goddamn
Mr. Presley! Why, I've been wonderfully patient with you, but when you start cursing me, well, I won't have it.
Mrs. Crane!
You stop it until you can address me like a gentleman. Don't speak to me.
Ah!
Now listen, you!
You'll keep out of it.
Oh no, why don't keep out of it? Where the hell did you get off anyway? Husband a lady? If I'd been Miss Crane, I would have knocked your false teeth right down into your gizzard.
You woman!
Now wait you a minute, Presley. Don't strike her. Give me a minute to talk with him. You can't get anywhere by threatening her.
Oh, he'll get somewhere all right if he don't lay off Miss Crane, and they'll have to take him there in an ambulance.
Mr. Rock.
Now, Presley, you're wrong about Mrs. Gordon, and here's why you're wrong.
Take your hands off.
Look, Presley, listen to reason.
Take them off me, I say.
Presley, I'm telling you.
Take them off me.
You mean you want me to sock him?
Yes, that's what you call it. But only the last. We must not let him hold out until the judge dismisses us. This jury must not be dismissed. Heaven knows who or what they will get on the next jury. You know, Mr. Rom, that I do not believe in using violence, but if he absolutely refuses to listen to reason, well, there's only one thing left to do, and you must do it.
Good.
But only after I've made one final heroic effort to make him see the light. But if I fail, then, oh, Miss Mix.
She wants me to sock him.
I don't believe in neither do you. You're saying that because Mrs. Crane said it, and you'd sell your soul to be her godmother.
Now, Presley, wait 1 minute. That's an insult. Then I won't stand for it.
Serve you right, let me make you take a sucker beat the daylights out of him.
You're no better than he is. You'd sell your soul to be her cook.
Sir, who do you think you are, shaking your fist at me?
Why you?
Now, Mr.
take more than you to wear me out. I'm right, and right makes mine. Now fight you to the finish. All of you!
Why, Mr. Presley, we're not here to fight. We're here to save the life of an innocent woman who's being accused of murder. Now, Mr. Presley, be reasonable. Let us forget our differences.
Stop talking to me!
Now, just listen to my little theory. Now, when Mrs. Gordon went to visit Chauncey Gordon on her honeymoon, Chauncey arranged with that maid to weasel her way into Mrs. Gordon's good graces and spy on her in her very own home.
Rubbish!
Now, Mr. Presley, you've been wonderfully patient. Just bear with me a bit longer and consider it. Just consider Chauncey's motives and the maid's motive. Isn't there something there? Shouldn't it be examined into?
Stop talking to me! I won't listen to another word. I don't believe it, and you don't believe it. No one would send an innocent person to his death for money.
What do you mean? No one would send innocent people to their death for money. Everybody's doing it.
You keep at it. I don't want to talk to you.
Husbands bumping their wives off for what they've got.
Stop it! Let me alone!
Nurses slipping poison to rich old men and getting paid for it.
Let me alone!
Folks killing their own kids for insurance. Wouldn't do it? Listen, if you keep us here much longer, I can kill you for nothing and like it.
Why you?
Poor dear.
My aromatic spirits before she faces me. Sorry, Laura. Mrs. Gray, it's my medicine. It is in my bag in the bathroom. Yes, Mrs. Gray. Which bag, Mrs. Gray? Oh, I don't know all of them. Yes, all of them. All of them. You killed him. You killed him.
Not a chance. Anyway, he was trying to kill her anyway.
Don't wake him, Mrs. Pratt. It'd be a pity to wake him. He looks so peaceful.